What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we have a Faction Wars basics to understand, a fundamentals guide to the faction crypts. We have all the different factions, dwarves, Sacred Order, Ogren tribes. This is going to be the very first video I wanted to make before I made any other faction crypt videos, but we already know I did Shadow King crypt already. If you guys ever need to reference this guide in the future, I'll link it so you guys can have a reference to this just in case you guys need it. I'm going to go over 4 main things here. It's going to be champion types, stage similarities, bosses, and team compositions. And it's going to be general info. So if you've already beaten all the faction wars, you don't need none of this. If you're still stuck on a stage 21, you could probably use something in here. You'll find something useful. And if you're just starting out, there's going to be a ton of stuff for you. The 2 biggest takeaways I want you to get out of this guide are that your experience is going to be dictated by these 2 key components. Number 1, your champion's speed. The faster they go, the better off and more successful your runs will be. The slower they are, the more you will get held back. Number 2, DPS is king. Damage per second matters, or in this case, damage per ability use. Most levels are just a DPS check to some degree, meaning if you have enough DPS, you will win, and if you don't, you won't. That simple. Regardless of your team comp, there are always exceptions, but for the most part, this will embody your playing experience. Although at higher levels, do expect to have more to do than just nuke a wave one time. They hit back. There are many more ways to increase your DPS, but the best way, in my opinion, is to level them to 60, which means a lot of chickens. You'll need to grind to buy a ton of chickens or acquire food champions along the way. One way or another, after that, your gear will matter. Then your skill books, and lastly, your masteries. By the time you reach stage 21 for most factions, you will be close to or already maxed out on a lot of your champions. Keep this in mind as you build them. I have 13 Dark Elves leveled to 60 as I create this, but still haven't beat the final stage of that faction crypt. Now that's being a little facetious. I leveled 3 of them up in this last tournament and I haven't had a chance to try the faction crypt, but 10 is still a lot. And that's probably 7 more than what you need for other crypts. So that's quite a bit. That means your choices are going to matter, and making the right choices for the right team composition matters most. Unless you're trying to level up that many champions, hi, I'm a content creator, then you won't want to. That's not efficient use of your time or materials. I made these mistakes, so you won't have to. Most crypts can be beaten with the 3 level 60 champions, and someone else out there will prove me wrong by doing it with less. That's how critical this information is. Let's go over the champion types. We have buffers. Champions that provide buffs for themselves or other allied champions on the team. Can be anybody. CC or crowd controllers. Crowd controllers usually can fear, freeze, petrify, provoke, sleep, stun. They are champions who disrupt the enemy team's turns by inflicting a status effect. Debuffers, vital support or DPS tank champions that can interfere with the enemy attacks, champion statistics, or to control them by some means. DPS or DDs, damage dealing champions who primarily focus on bringing down enemies with heavy hits. Healers, champions that can heal up injured champions, especially DPS and tanks. Revivers, champions that can bring other champions back from death or prevent death preemptively. Supports, any combination of debuffers, healers, or revivers. Non-tank and DPS champions. Tanks, champions who take a lot of damage without dying and can possibly wave control, primarily through provoke to keep others safe. Sometimes freeze too. Carries, a champion that is so good they can practically or literally beat the crypt by themselves. An amazing champion that makes it easy. We all know a few of those, right? Leveling up different champion types, some rules or guidelines I lived and died by. Number 1, I level my DPS up first, to 40, to 50, to 60. Obviously, who is DPS will vary widely, especially per faction. Could be a tank, debuffer, a healer, a buffer. They come in all shapes and sizes. Choose wisely. Best rule for DPS is to pick guys who hit very hard, but can also take a few hits. This does not apply to everyone, even when it comes to legendaries. There's levels to this stuff. Glass cannons usually get wrecked at higher stages without a lot of support around them. I'm looking at you, Brackus the Shifter. Now, sometimes the best DPS for the faction wars are defense or HP-based nukers for obvious reasons. There are tons of good nukers this applies to. Frisk, Angar are some void ones, but there's a ton of them out there, to be honest. Number 4, you will need accuracy to land debuffs, so getting your debuffers up to 60 makes sense too, for the accuracy banners. Number 5, obviously tanks make a great candidate to take the 60 as well, especially ones that AoE provoke at CC since they need accuracy to land it, and they will be soaking up all the damage. Number 6, if anybody I leveled up last or stopped at 50 with, it would be the pure healers and revivers. You can build them very tanky to stay alive. They don't need the accuracy to res you. That's resurrect or revive you. Number 7, a carry can be so good that you don't have to level up or try very hard with a few of your other champions on the team, like Krisk again as an example. So these are the primary roles in which champions fill within a team. In Raid Shadow Legends, a champion can fulfill multiple roles at once or just one. Depends on the champion's kit, which is his or her combination of abilities. Sometimes a champion's function changes depending on how they are built. The different types of champions depend upon the kits and the builds combined. The game offers a lot of different and varying abilities. There are a lot of unique combinations of champion types. Carries are hard to get, but if you get one, it will make whatever faction crypt it is associated with much easier to complete. Congratulations, you've been lucky enough to get one. If not, keep hope alive. There are very few I've ran across so far. As an example, Krisk, the Ageless from the Lizardman faction, happens to be one of those types of champions. I already mentioned him. Couple him with another decent champ like Rosin, Scarhide, and practically any other 3 lizards will do as long as they can stay alive or get resurrected before the boss dies. He is that good. Carries are hard to come by though. You can't count on getting them, and they're a nice luxury to have if you are fortunate enough to have one. In my faction crypt videos, we will teach you how to beat all the crypts. You will know exactly what type of champions you will need to level. Leveling up different champion types. Before we move on to team compositions, let's talk real quickly about the types of challenges we'll be facing within the faction crypts. There are some similarities between the different crypts and some unique things about them. First, the similarities. So the commonalities we have here are some of the most important information about the faction crypts that they all share together. Each crypt stage has 3 rounds or waves of enemies. Each round consists of 5 in-game champions that are arranged to provide a specific level of difficulty and challenge. Many times, multiple copies of the same champion are represented to increase the difficulty of the challenge, like 3 Valkyries, 2 Martyrs. Every 7 stages, there's a boss stage. There are 3 boss stages within each crypt at stage 7, 14, and 21 respectively. There are several different types of bosses within the game. We'll go over those individually. All have unique kits and 2 guards with unique kits as well. Except for maybe, I think, the Dueler. You have the ability to win up to 3 stars per stage of each crypt. You must win in order to get a star. You only get 3 stars if you win and everybody's alive at the end of the stage. You can unlock all the rewards if you have beaten every stage of the crypt with at least 1 star. You can't unlock all of the global rewards, though, without completing every stage of every crypt at 3 stars. There are periodic global rewards for every 5 stars you receive. And the rewards are progressive. They get better as you go. Take a look at the bosses we will encounter. Faction bosses, we have the blue, the Protector. He's an ally attack specialist. The gold, the Disruptor. CC King, he has Provoke, AoE Fear, Freeze when hit. The Incinerator is green. Poison, HP Burn, Nightmare. The Mirror is purple. He has an HP exchange. He's basically a DPS race. The Dueler, which is red, hits like a Mack truck. Now, on stage 21, he's a problem. Now let me know what the bosses are and what they do. Let's move on to team compositions that are best used to complete stages with 3 stars. There are several different types of teams you can use to clear the stages within the faction crypts. There are probably 5 main types of teams that I frequently find myself using. Let's go over the different types now. The faction crypt CC is king, but decreased defense and or decreased attack can really help your team out. Block debuffs, buffers, and cleansers are highly sought after, as well as turn meter boosters. Please note that the 3-star stage must have all of your champions alive at the end of the stage, although they can die at any time. But most teams, if not all teams, usually consist of a reviver of some sort in some fashion. Completing the final stages of the faction crypts is doable without one, but is certainly more difficult to do and has higher requirements involved. Assume that most teams with a support consist of at least 1 reviver. Although exceptions do exist, those types of unique teams will be low percentage how you will win, and I would venture to guess, at least that has been my experience. So team number 1, we have the Holy Trinity, a tank, reviver, healer with 3 DPS. It can be any combination of debuffers as well, since there are so many varieties of champions within the game. Raid Shadow Legends is unique in which sometimes your tanks are the DPS, Drexstar, Angar, Krisk, as well as buffers and debuffers, Angar, Sigmund, and sometimes even healers like Vogoth and Burgoth the Malformed, or resurrectors like Mali Tankard and Alton. Your tanks can really vary widely in their uses and what they do. So we have the tank, the healer, the reviver, DPS, DPS, DPS. Team number 2, we have 3 supports with 2 DPS. This type of team usually has 3 healers or 2 healers, plus a great buffer debuffer, Sir Nicholas, Madame Ceres on the squad, usually having 1 or more resurrectors as well, Arbiter, Ursula the Mourner. The DPS usually have at least 1 very punishing damage dealer that hits with a very hard AoE type of attack, or multiple, like Canderfon, Trunda, or Cleopteryx. 2 supports with 3 DPS. This type of team is even more common than the last. Sometimes 3 DPS just makes things go quicker, which is better at times and sometimes even necessary to win, especially when you have 2 solid DPS that can provide support through amazing debuffs. The 2 supports usually tend to be buffers and healers, like Steelskin, and sometimes dual-use revivers. Siffi the Lost Bride, Arbiter, Ursula the Mourner, Rector Drath all come to mind. Team 4 and Team 5 are very similar, yet slightly different. Team number 4, we have 5 DPS teams or 4 DPS plus a support. These teams can give you the fastest results of all the teams since they put out the most punishment. These teams usually have champions that are very fast and can hurt you quickly, like Hegemon. More debuffs, the better, since this is Faction Wars and you will probably get hit at some point. Some of the best teams have the best debuffs that allow you to do more damage, like anybody with weakened or decreased defense, for example, like Dracomorph, Alexander the Sharpshooter, Robar, Skullcrown. Some teams have good DPS that can give you other DPS buffs to increase their damage, like Battle Sage. These teams have only 4 DPS and a support. It's usually a buffer, like increased attack, and or a healer, like Arbiter, with a turn meter boost. Sure, there are many more types of team compositions you can come up with, perhaps an all-healer team, or a turn meter control squad. Our imaginations and gear are the limits. My Faction War videos, these will be the primary types of team compositions you can expect to see regularly, unless otherwise stated. Let me know in the comments section what kind of team compositions you have used, especially if you have used something cool or unique that I didn't already list. I love hearing about new concepts in the game, and there are many of you that have beat some of these way before me, so let me know. That's it for today's video. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. Take care.